We begin with this crazy weather. Almost 80 tornadoes hitting the plains in the last 2 days. At least 7 people have died this week from these storms. So I want to go to Rob Marciano, who's in Golden City, Oklahoma, with more. Rob?
Hi, Kimberly. A sad day here in Golden City, Missouri. 3 people losing their lives in this town. This is one of many badly damaged, if not destroyed, structures. The man that lives here was not here, thankfully, when the storm came through, because it would have been a tough go. We're looking at another day, another round of storms that did the damage that will take out substantial homes, in this case, made of brick. So you know this is a large, powerful storm ripping across these trees, tearing up old growth trees as well. On the back side of this property, you've got several trailers that have been flipped over, and even some large farming equipment completely destroyed. This is a cell that started in Oklahoma, scooted across the Kansas line, and got into southwest Missouri here, barely missing Joplin, Missouri, which, by the way, yesterday was the anniversary date of their devastating EF5 tornado back in 2011. Thankfully, history not repeating itself there, but obviously a very tough day here in southwest Missouri, not to mention the storm that hit Jefferson City, the state's capital, 20 people injured and heavy damage there. And adding insult to injury, the storms and the rain continue to pour down as they start their cleanup and recovery today. Tough times here in Missouri, more severe coming this weekend in the plains. Kimberly?
All right, thank you, Rob. Very, very sad. So I want to take a look at the weather across the country with Ginger Z. Ginger?
Kimberly, thank you. So many headlines to get to. So it begins with the storm that we've been watching for days. Now we've got 29 reported tornadoes just in the last 24 hours, 3 people at least killed and dozens injured. So let's go ahead and focus in on what's been happening. We'll start with the flash flooding, because that's still a major problem. And it went from flash flooding to just regular flooding, flooding those rivers and creeks. This is Crescent, Oklahoma, along the Cimarron River. That home washed away, thanks to all of the water that was put there by those storms on Monday night. Now, the same system slid across the plains. Wichita, Springfield, Tulsa still have flood warnings all along rivers and creeks, anywhere in red there, particularly because of what already happened, how saturated they've been, and the rain to come. So even in Arkansas, you've got to watch as some of these rivers and creeks still are on the rise. But let's focus in on the tornado part and the severe storms, the damaging wind part. So this is a look at kind of a broad look at the base of a thunderstorm, where you can see circulation, multiple, where one of them there taking out part of that transformer, blowing that, and then there's a roped out tornado on the other side. There could be multi-vortex, we call it, tornadoes, or many tornadoes within one circulation. And so that's what was happening there. Again, there were so many others reported throughout Missouri and Oklahoma, but now the same line along that cold front going to come into the northeast and mid-Atlantic. So Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Wilmington, right up to Philadelphia, at the drive time, when everybody's leaving work and when they're all saying, okay, I took Friday off for Memorial Day weekend, well, you've got to watch the radar tonight, because even from Harrisburg and Wilkes-Barre back through much of Pennsylvania, you have a shot at not just some isolated tornadoes, but also that damaging wind. So you can easily have a tree picked up, thrown into your car. It's just not a time you're going to want to be driving, especially, again, in that afternoon and evening time period. So keep an eye on that. And then there's a new storm that we're watching to bring hail, certainly tornado and damaging wind threats to Kansas, western Oklahoma, including Woodward, much of the panhandle of Texas. A new storm, then, that's not going to move much, and so you want to keep an eye on where it goes next, or any of the threat, and that means Friday could get a little hairy from eastern Iowa, so Quad Cities, Des Moines, Kansas City again, Wichita again, getting a little closer to Oklahoma City, but really not moving much on Friday, and at least in the southern plains. This is just going to be a system we'll be watching for heavy rains too. And then I'll leave you with this, because there's other weather going on, and other weather meaning quite a bit of snow. They've had more May snow in the past in South Dakota here in the Black Hills, but it's just something else to be sitting there on May 20th. And on those dates themselves, they have not had this level. Either way, that woman seems to be taking it much better than I would, Kimberly.
All right, Ginger, snow in May still gets me. Don't know about that. All right, guys, we move on to Washington. That meeting between President Trump, Speaker Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer on infrastructure didn't go well at all. The president then held an impromptu press conference after the meeting was over, and this was followed by a rebuttal from Speaker Pelosi. So take a listen.
Instead of walking in happily into a meeting, I walk in to look at people that had just said that I was doing a cover-up. I don't do cover-ups.
He just took a pass, and it just makes me wonder why he did that. In any event, I pray for the President of the United States, and I pray for the United States of America.
All right, I want to go to Karen Travers at the White House. Karen, obviously lots of tension between those two. What do we know about what happened inside this meeting, and where do we go from here?
Yeah, Kimberly, it was pretty wild here yesterday at the White House. As we were expecting the Democrats to arrive here for that infrastructure meeting, the White House was telling reporters to get out to the Rose Garden immediately. That did not bode well for an infrastructure meeting. We certainly weren't expecting the president to come out with Democratic leaders and announce some major breakthrough, so it could only mean that he was looking to vent. Sources tell us the president was in the cabinet room for less than 5 minutes. He didn't sit down, he didn't shake anybody's hands, and it was already set up in the Rose Garden for him to come out and slam Democrats and their investigations. Yesterday, the president said that he cannot work with Democrats if they are going to go down two tracks at the same time. He says the investigation track and the investment or policy track. They have to pick. It's one or the other. It doesn't bode well for the next 18 months here in Washington. Certainly doesn't bode well for infrastructure, which is essentially dead, but other policy issues, it's not clear whether or not the president and the Democrats are going to get back in the same room and talk about anything they could work together on. Another big thing, Kimberly, today, the president is defending his reaction to this. We were told the president was angry and that Pelosi's comment about the cover-up pushed him over the edge. Well, the president, tweeting just a few minutes ago, "I was extremely calm yesterday." He blamed the media for what he says is fueling a rage narrative. But again, Kimberly, sources tell us the president was very upset yesterday, and it was clear to anybody who was watching him. I was in the Rose Garden yesterday. He was very fired up.
Yeah, and so I'm just curious what people on your radio calls were asking about specifically regarding this interaction.
I think the question now is, where do they go from there? I mean, the president made it very clear the day after the Democrats won the House in the midterm elections that he said if they were going to pursue investigations, which was inevitable, they were campaigning on it, he would go into what he called a warlike posture. Well, here we are. He's in that posture. He insists he's cooperating with Democrats, but they are blocking investigations. They're blocking requests for information and inquiries. And if the president says he can't work with the Democrats while they're doing investigations, I think it's anybody's guess as to what's going to actually happen here in the Capitol for the next 18 months.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Trump is set to announce a new bailout plan for farmers.
Yeah, the president's going to deliver remarks later today about his administration's support for farmers and ranchers. And we're expecting him here to announce what could be a $15 billion plan to help the farmers who are really impacted, hard hit by the president's ongoing trade war with China. This will be the second time in a year, Kimberly, that the administration has set aside emergency funding for farmers. Last year, it was $12 billion. This could be 15. There was a big backlash last year on Capitol Hill. Even some Republicans, especially from the Midwest, said farmers don't want a bailout. They want relief from this trade war. They want the tariffs to be lifted. Of course, this comes just 2 weeks after the president put more tariffs, increased tariffs on Chinese products. He shows no signs of backing down from that fight.
All right, Karen Travers at the White House, thank you so much for the updates. We appreciate that. His nickname is the American Taliban, and now after more than 17 years behind bars, John Walker Lynn has been released from prison. This is 2.5 years before completing his full 20-year sentence. If you remember, he faced charges of providing support to terrorists following the 9/11 attack. So I want to go to Whit Johnson, who's in Indiana, with more. Whit, there's a lot of people, especially families who had victims in 9/11, these attacks that aren't okay with him being released. So what are they telling you?
Well, Kimberly, that's right. There's been plenty of controversy surrounding the release of John Walker Lynn, even before he walked out of that prison behind me in the early morning hours. And the most vocal opponents, the family of Mike Spann. He's that CIA agent who was killed in Afghanistan back in 2001 in a prison uprising there. That prison, of course, is where Lynn was staying. And about an hour earlier, before that revolt, Spann is seen on video interrogating Lind, asking him questions. Now, ultimately, Lind was never charged in Spann's death. He pleaded guilty to providing armed support to the Taliban. But we're also getting information from several government reports and ABC News sources telling us that they believe Lynn is still radicalized, still holds extremist views, and even at one point expressed support for ISIS. That information has outraged Span's family, his father and sister, appealing directly to President Trump and lawmakers to intervene. They say the fact that Lynn was actually let out of prison about 3 years early feels like a slap in the face. Kimberly?
Do we know why he was released early?
It's a good question. We've been following it. Basically, the Bureau of Prisons says that they followed the rules and regulations of Lynn's sentencing. They say that because of his good conduct, he was able to get out early. The Department of Justice did not oppose his release. Now, a judge did impose some tough restrictions as part of his probation, which is a 3-year term. And for those restrictions, he basically can only use limited and monitored approved internet access. He has to communicate in English. He can't have a passport. He can't leave the country without permission. Also, he's expected to, we know, move to Northern Virginia outside of D.C. sometime in the near future.
All right, Whit Johnson, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. And guys, it's worth taking a look at just where we stand in this war in Afghanistan. Lynn was captured in 2001. The U.S. still has 14,000 troops in Afghanistan. Over 2,000 U.S. soldiers have died since the start of the war. Over 20,000 troops have been wounded, and the cost of the war has been $773 billion. America's longest war continues. And we move on, guys, to India. If you haven't been following the world's largest election, the results are in. 600 million people voted to keep Prime Minister Modi in office. So I want to go to Shreya Banerjee in Delhi with more.
It looks like it's going to be a massive election win for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP party. We're in front of the headquarters here where supporters have gathered to celebrate. They're looking at a whopping majority, even better than they did last time around in 2014. The opposition Congress party is going to be disappointed. They were hoping to make some big gains in this election. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party, however, capitalized on the terror attacks in Kashmir and in the wake of that talked a lot about national security and nationalism, and there were even airstrikes in Pakistan that helped sway the electorate. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also going to be hoping to work closely with the United States, and that India has always been an important geostrategic partner, and they will hoping to strengthen these ties even as trade tensions simmer.
All right, we appreciate that, Shreya. Thank you for the updates on the election. And guys, you know I love some good news, stories where progress is actually being made. So this weekend at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, the largest class of black women, 32 to be exact, will walk across the stage and graduate. The school is also graduating the largest class of Hispanic women, 19 women in total. And this is pretty incredible considering the school opened in 1802 and women didn't attend until 1976. So I was sitting right here yesterday when I got a chance to speak to some of the cadets who are going to be graduating this weekend. So take a look. First, congratulations. How are you feeling about your graduation coming up in a few days?
I, for one, am very excited. I also went to the United States Military Academy Preparatory School, so that was an additional year that I had. So we've kind of been doing this for half a decade now. So it's about time to get on out there and implement what I've learned here at West Point.
And Mimi, how are you feeling?
Ma'am, the whole thing is quite surreal for me. I had only dreamed of this day for a very long time, so getting to experience it is very exciting. I'm also really looking forward to just getting out into the Army and getting started on this job that we've been trained for the past 4 years.
And Alexandra, how you feeling?
I am extraordinarily excited to graduate this Saturday. I'm a third-generation Army person, and I'm just really excited to get out and do what West Point trained us to do.
So, of course, we're talking to you guys not just because you're amazing on your own, but because your school is making history. I want to talk about this photo shoot that all of the black girls in the class took together. What was it like for you all to come together and take that photo? That's pretty iconic.
So the photo was more so like a reunion for us. We got together. A lot of us hadn't seen each other in a little while. We're all taking our final exams. Everyone has other requirements. So it was really nice to get all of the ladies together for a historical photo. This photo is taken every year. So we're just really excited to be able to get together and see each other and just be excited about the fact that we're graduating.
And Alexandra, what do you want people to feel from that photo? Because it has been in the news. It's been in all of these articles, just seeing all of the graduates together in that scene. It's pretty amazing, even if you do it every year.
I would love for people to feel the same pride and joy that we have, that we are this close to graduating from West Point. I would also love for people to recognize this outstanding achievement that West Point is beginning to represent and look like the rest of America.
Absolutely. And Mimi, this is also the largest class of Hispanic women that are graduating. Why do you think there's this uptick at West Point?
Ma'am, I think that the Army and West Point is recognizing that we need to represent more of America. And this is awesome to be a part of. And I know that I hadn't really thought about it so much until the past couple of weeks, but being able to reflect on my class and what it's made up of makes me really proud, and I'm just really, really excited to be a part of this group.
West Point started in 1802. The first woman was initiated into the class in 1976. That's when women were being accepted. So again, just before we go, how do you guys feel knowing that, those women paved the way, and here you are, the largest graduating class of minority women ever?
It is such an incredible honor to walk the same plane, take the same classes in the same building as those women that came before us, because those are women that have served honorably the United States of America, and to be passed the torch this coming Saturday is such an honor. I'm so excited.
All right. Again, congratulations to those cadets. They are amazing. That's beautiful. So guys, did you watch the remake of All in the Family and the Jeffersons live in front of a studio audience last night? It was pure nostalgia for these iconic boundary-breaking sitcoms and still timely, touching issues like race, class, sexism. It was produced by Jimmy Kimmel and hosted by Norman Lear, a star-studded ensemble including Woody Harrelson, Jamie Foxx, Jennifer Hudson, a surprise for Marla Gibbs. So take a look.
Oh, Archie, Henry Jefferson is going to be so disappointed if you don't go to his party. Just yesterday, he told me if there was one person he'd be happy to say goodbye to, it would be you.
Don't try to butter me up, huh, Edith?
Oh, come on, Daddy. We're practically the closest friends.
Closest friends? What are you talking about, huh? Their closest friends are still shrinking heads in Africa.
I didn't know the Jeffersons had a couple.
Couple of what?
A maid and a butler. You too.
Butler?
What? Yeah, they must be real rich.
No, Diane, we are the Jeffersons.
You're right, Louise. He is a great joker. He's not joking, Diane.
You got to be kidding.
How can you afford a nice place like this? You ain't tall enough to be no basketball player.
Still so funny. So I want to bring in Kelly Carter from ESPN's The Undefeated. Kelly, thanks so much for being with us today. Norman Lear, 96 years old, he said that restaging these shows was an experiment to test if they hold up as well in the present day 2019 audience. What did you think?
I think that Norman Lear's experiment proved quite well. It absolutely does hold up all these years later. And in a lot of cases, especially because the scripts that they chose for last night's presentation, you could actually sub out some names of current politicians or current pop culture figures, and it still works in 2019. That's the uncomfortable part about it, but that also is the brilliant comedic part about, how well his show is really tapped into the fabric of what people are actually talking about at their dinner tables.
Yeah, and so I think one of the things that they changed from the originals is they had to bleep out the N word this time. So what did you think of those moments where you could hear that word was being taken out?
Well, that was very smart on their behalf, because you could hear at times, especially because we're assuming that some of the audience, this was new material for some people that were watching this, a new generation of people were consuming it. And you could hear, like, when Woody Harrelson as Archie Bunker first said the word colored, that people didn't quite know how to react, when stuff like that was happening. So imagine if the N-word would have flown in that audience, which again, we're assuming is in large part a new audience, or at least an evolved thought-wise audience in 2019. That would have been a really uncomfortable moment, but I think that the point of the scripts, the jokes, still landed very well in spite of that.
So I want to talk about the performances. I want to hear who your favorites were.
First off, can we talk about Marissa Tomei?
Yes.
I don't know if I would say Marissa Tomei as Edith or as Jean Stapleton, but she definitely did Jean Stapleton well. It was almost like Marissa Tomei was like, hello guys, I have an Oscar and let me show you what my range is and what I can do. And she definitely did well on that. Jamie Foxx as George Jefferson was fantastic. Sherman Hemsley as Jefferson was very over the top, in some cases cartoonish a little bit in his walk and kind of stature and delivery. And Jamie gave us kind of that throwback, his obviously introduction to us was sketch comedy within Living Color back in the 90s. And he kind of gave that throwback sketch comedy that we came to know and love Jamie for, as interpreted as George Jefferson. I thought that was really inspired and really great too.
It was incredible. And I want to talk about Jennifer Hudson because, of course, she did this song that we all love, and we have a clip of that. Let's hear her singing.
Absolutely.
Well, we're moving on up to the east side, to that deluxe apartment in the sky. We're moving on up.
If that girl didn't kill it, she really takes everyone to church no matter what song she's singing, right? I absolutely love this song.
So love that song. She killed it. And people who don't know the TV series know that song.
Yes.
I've been at parties, I've been at nightclubs, and I've heard Moving On Up being performed or played. So people are very familiar with that very iconic TV theme song. And she kind of really set the pace and the course of what was coming in the Jeffersons last night. And it was so great.
And just getting your opinion, what do you think it is about comedy that just helps with these very difficult issues to tackle?
Comedy is a departure. And so it gives you a chance to kind of laugh at the ridiculous or laugh at the inane. And also it gives you a jumping off place to talk about something in a different way with perhaps some of the aggression and in some cases passion, I think, taken a little bit out of those conversations. And it also gives everybody a commonality. We all have relatives that were represented in All in the Family and in the Jeffersons. And so there's this familiarity that we can all kind of talk about some of these issues that are kind of dominating headlines right now in 2019. It gives you an entry point, and it also gives you a chance to just sit back for 30 minutes or 22 minutes and just say, okay, I'm not alone.
Well said. Kelly Carter, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your perspective there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, my friends, continue to take care of yourselves. And if you're around, you can stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. and then check out World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. I'm Kimberly Brooks, and I'll see you tomorrow.